Hey everyone. So recently, a lot of people seem to have been sharing an enormous amount of COVID misinformation, specifically in the form of Alan Jones videos. I've decided to take one of his shorter videos and respond to some of the claims he makes. I was amazed at how many errors there are in his video, and it might be more accurate to call it a deliberate misleading of the audience. I think it's important to respond to these incorrect claims since it can be the kind of thing that gets traction and snowballs to harmful, misinformed opinions.
I beg your pardon? Beg your pardon?
Sarah, I'm just asking if you've got a mask.
Well, it's clear I don't. And you are not authorised to ask me or question me about it.
Would you like to speak to the manager?
Sure.
We need a medical certificate if you guys aren't wearing a mask.
I actually don't need a medical certificate if you refer
Can
to
you
the
please stop
DH.
filming me?
No, I'm allowed to do this. And you're discriminating
I'm not
against me.
discrimination. We're all just trying to all be in this together. We all have
All
to
in
wear a
what
mask.
together? I actually don't. And you're not authorised by the Australian government to even question me about it.
It's a condition of entry of our store as
Then that's discrimination, and I can have you sued personally for discriminating against me as a woman.
We're not discriminating against anyone.
You
it's
are.
A condition of entry to all Bunnings stores.
It's
We are
not.
required to wear a mask.
It's an unlawful condition of entry.
By the way, all of the sources I cite will be in the description box, so let's get started.
Well, look, let's get into it. Reluctantly, but importantly, I must comment on this further alarmism in relation to coronavirus. From 11:59 p.m. Wednesday, Victorians will have to wear a face mask.
This is just rhetoric. It doesn't give us any reason to classify this as, quote, alarmism, unless following advice from experts is just alarmism. The current guidelines around Australia are in line with the latest advice from the relevant experts.
Like the lockdowns, no evidence, not a single slip of paper.
Yeah, it looks like Alan and his superstar research team didn't do their homework, like, at all. Not even a little bit.
Not a single slip of paper to justify this make-it-up-as-you-go approach.
The COVID-19 crisis is a dynamic and somewhat unprecedented situation. Calling it a make-it-up-as-you-go approach is just making light of the magnitude of the challenge. The experts are advising as per the best evidence at the time, and updating that advice as new, better evidence becomes available.
I mentioned last week that I have read medical material, which says two things. If you have the infection, the mask can help prevent the spread.
So this is a study which shows that masks can be of benefit for uninfected individuals as well. One of the study's co-authors stated, "A study establishes very clearly that using a face mask is not only useful to prevent infected coughing droplets from reaching uninfected persons, but is also crucial for these uninfected persons to avoid breathing the minute atmospheric particles, known as aerosols, that infected people emit when talking and can remain in the atmosphere tens of minutes and can travel tens of feet."
But equally, quote, often people wear those masks incorrectly. They take them on and off, they touch them, they don't change them after a few hours, or when they get wet, and all of those things make them useless, unquote.
There's no reason for him to insinuate that the risks and benefits equalise out. In fact, the available evidence indicates that the benefit seems to outweigh risk for wearing masks.
As the Vice President of the AMA said, I think there's a danger that they give a false sense of security, unquote.
Yeah, similar to the previous point, there's no reason to assume that this means that masks are ineffective or counter-effective. Refer to the previous articles.
I've got correspondence I couldn't jump over. Andrews and Berejiklian have succeeded in frightening the tripe out of people. I hate the word scared, but people are scared.
I agree it's a scary time at the moment for a lot of people, but what Andrews and Berejiklian are doing is in line with current guidelines from relevant experts.
The World Health Organization repeats 99% of all cases are mild.
There doesn't seem to be any evidence for where he got this statement from, and I'm fairly confident that he has just barefaced lied to the audience with this quote. This is the quote from the World Health Organization fact sheet on COVID. Around 1 out of every 5 people who gets COVID-19 becomes seriously ill and develops difficulty breathing.
But as one viewer has written, the Victorian Health Minister just stated, I quote, "We're in for the fight of our lives." Good grief, says my writer. When do these stupid people get a grip on reality? Just quarantine the aged and the sick and let the rest of us get on with our lives, unquote.
Does Alan realize that he's an aged person? The guy was born in the middle of World War II. It's also amazing that he hasn't understood the concepts of flattening the curve, surge capacity, and so on at this point. I'd recommend everyone read the following article called The Hammer and the Dance.
I did my own poll at the weekend. I asked very intelligent people wherever I went.
Hey, y'all, come look at this.
If they could remember swine flu in 2009. I've said this before. No one said yes. But there were 38,000 cases, 191 deaths, no lockdowns, no political lectures. Yet here we are with 11,802 cases and 122 deaths.
This is a quite simple one. In comparison to swine flu, coronavirus is about 2 to 4 times as contagious, as per the R0 number, and about 40 to 50 times as fatal. With about 20% of people needing to be hospitalised, this puts us in danger of exceeding surge capacity and overwhelming the health system. Again, it's worth referring to the previous article on the hammer and dance for a better understanding of this point.
In Victoria, 0.08% of the population have tested positive, 0.0005% have died. As at today, 7.1 million people around the world have died so far this year from communicable disease, 4.5 million from cancer, 2.7 million from smoking. Gladys Berejiklian tells us that New South Wales is on high alert. This is not about you and me. The Victorian Premier is fighting for his political life. Andrews is about himself. He knows his number's up.
Yeah, it doesn't help when people with enormous media influence spread regular propaganda against the job you're doing. Case in point.
This is the man who allowed 10,000 anarchists to march in central Melbourne.
There's no evidence to show that the 10,000 people who marched were all pro-anarchy. There's also no evidence to show a virus outbreak from the people who marched.
He didn't act on a virus outbreak at Cedar Meatworks because the owners were Labor mates. This
is maybe partially correct at best. The owner of Cedar has apparently been a donor to Labor and a Labor Party member in the past. That seems like that's all there is to the claim. There is no evidence that Labor has knowingly, intentionally given favouritism towards this company. If anyone has hard evidence, not just conjecture, feel free to provide it. Otherwise, this just seems to be an overstatement.
He allowed unions to run the hotel quarantining.
There's no evidence of this. If anything, the unions seem to be critical of the practices in place and have said the employees had received inadequate training.
He used public funds to run the last Labor election campaign.
Did he just get one right? Almost. It was for the 2014, not the 2018 election campaign. There is no evidence, however, that Andrews was directly involved. The money has been repaid.
And when Health Minister in 2009, the Auditor General found that hospital waiting lists had been falsified. Instead of having the decency to resign, he hides behind a judicial inquiry.
The practice of falsifying waiting lists had begun occurring for years before Daniel Andrews was the Health Minister, and probably before Daniel Andrews was an elected politician. Daniel Andrews is so bad at his job, according to Alan Jones, that you can blame him for things that started and were occurring before he was even in the job. The problem was identified during Daniel Andrews' time as Health Minister, and actions were taken by Andrews, who took full responsibility, to prevent future occurrences. For me, the worst crime Daniel Andrews committed at that time was probably this haircut. I mean, I'm not the most fashionable guy, but just look at this. Look at it! On a serious note, there is an accusation that Daniel Andrews denied the existence of this practice repeatedly before the evidence came out. I haven't been able to find the footage or transcripts of him doing it, so if someone has them, please feel free to send me a link.
Only a mad person would believe a lockdown will wipe out the virus.
Oh man, the point of lockdown in Australia and Victoria for coronavirus has been suppression, never elimination. The end game, like around most of the world, is the vaccine. The point of lockdown is flattening the curve, reducing risk of breaching surge capacity, and buying time until we get the vaccine. All of this is covered in the Hammer and Dance article. Read the stupid article. Just read it.
The same lockdown, according to the Federal Treasurer, is costing the economy $1 billion a week. And if New South Wales goes into shutdown, another 1.4 billion a week.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the issue is here. Australia has the greatest treasurer in the world, and he has foretold in April 2019 that our economy is set for great things, and nothing will stop it. You know what? I should just let Frydenberg speak for himself.
This financial year, Australia is still in a deficit.
But we have delivered a $7.1 billion surplus for 2019-2020, which is what all this budget is about. It's about the revenue and the spending commitments over that year and the forward estimates beyond.
But like any projection, your ability to deliver that $7 billion surplus is reliant on factors that are outside your control. It might not happen.
No, it will happen.
See, Josh is the guy. He knows what's up. Our economy. That's what's up. He has got this thing under lock and key.
6 months later.
More than $70 billion was wiped off the Australian share market today due to rising fears of a global recession. Every sector posted heavy losses, with energy, materials and telcos being the weakest performers.
Many months later.
Billions wiped from our share market in the most dramatic one-day fall since the global financial crisis.
Shane Oliver is AMP's Capital Chief Economist and joins us now. Shane, thanks for your time this morning.
Pleasure.
So you've predicted a recession for Australia.
That's right.
Do you think that's now a given?
I'd have to say it is, unfortunately.
Several months later.
Is Australia in recession today?
Well, the answer to that is yes. And that is on the basis of the advice that I have from the Treasury Department about where the June quarter is expected to be.
There's actually about 30 seconds left in this video, but it's just rhetoric and all of the points it makes have already been covered. If anybody would like to discuss or debate any of the topics in this video, I will leave a link to a Discord server. Feel free to come in and let me know. Just all I ask is that you do bring an argument and relevant evidence to back your argument. Alright, see you guys later.